welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenwood Football Show with Coach Jason Gibson. I'll be your host, Ronald Frazier, and we want to talk about Glenwood football with Coach Gibson, who is in his second year and has done a wonderful job with the Gators. Now, last year we had some fine seniors: Brandon Mosley, Trip Day, Cash Boatner. All three of those players are going on to play at the next level.
Right.
And so now what I'd like you to do is talk about those new players that you have for this year.
Well, speaking of those, that whole senior class last year was special. Not just because they were great athletes. I mean, Chaz Floyd and Gatewood and we call him Bug. Just so many, Waldrop and my big tackle. They were just really good football players that got it. And I happened to come in with a great senior class. When you have good senior leadership, then that's what happened. It was a magical season. But coming into this year, athletically on paper, it looks like we got a better team. But paper never wins football games.
If they did that, they wouldn't play them, right? Okay.
So getting them to mold and come together. So it's weird. I feel like we have a lot of seniors. I think 15, 16, 17 seniors, which is good. But they don't have the camaraderie that class had last year. That class was special. And I think this class is special, too, in a different way. They have to find their way right now. And we're looking for that. But when you talk about the seniors on the team now, obviously you start out with Cameron O'Neal. I think he's the best receiver in the region. And I don't think too many people are going to argue that. And he's 6'3", 190. He's already committed to Pitt. He could have went to Michigan State or Wisconsin or Virginia or whoever. And you start with him, Christian Clausell, who is getting overshadowed because the attention Cam's getting, but Christian is as good as a receiver as anybody else too. So you got Christian Clausell. Then you got John Burnett, who's coming back, who for a fullback who's 215, 218 pounds, I mean, he's probably got the best hands on the team, maybe. I mean, he can catch everything. You keep going down the list from seniors named Blake, David Copeland at DB, who was in the Junior Olympics for the 400. So he can fly. So anytime you got somebody that can run like that, you'll be fine. All the seniors going across the board. Of course, then we added, Kayleen Bonds, senior tailback out of Kendrick, and Navy Harris, senior pure athlete out of Kendrick. And these kids can play. So as you look across the board, and Gage Williams at linebacker, Chad Dykes, holy cow, he's probably going to be our team captain. Chad's just an outstanding football player, mentally, physically. He represents everything that you want out of a football player not a Glenwood school. He is to me a Glenwood guy. That's what Chad represents. I love having Chad out there along with Gage. So there is some good leadership. We just got to get them all together.
Well, I understand. And I know Chad has been a player for Glenwood, has played on the varsity for 4 years.
He was an 8th grader, right?
Right, and he was a third-generation player for Glenwood. You also have a new quarterback named Bryce Valero. What do you I see you grinning. What do you think?
Bryce pretty good. Bryce has the tools of a Division I quarterback. We're not there yet, but there's one – long time ago, I went to an Auburn-Georgia game. Georgia won. He was at Auburn, and they had this little quarterback. He had a young quarterback at the time. It was third and 15 or something. He made an 18-yard. He threw an 18-yard comeback all the way across the field on a rope, on point, on accurate. I looked at my father-in-law and said, "That guy's going to go in the NFL because you can't. If you can make a throw like that, you can play." A guy named Matthew Stafford, and it was before anyone really knew who he was at the time. But when you make those types of throws, that means you have the ability. Bryce can make those types of throws. Bryce can make throws that most quarterbacks can't make. And when you can do that, and he's 6'2", and he's already 190, 200 pounds, and he's a junior, sky's the limit for him. And he has a ton of weapons to throw to. So from that standpoint, you look at it and think, wow, this is what we have, and we're going to be pretty good. But Bryce brings that to the table.
Well, that's good. Okay. Well, let's talk about your defense. And I know that you've already scrimmaged one time, and your defense made a great play at the scrimmage, and they looked like to me that they were ready to play already.
They do a good job of, first of all, our athletes are on defense. They get after the quarterback, they hustle, but they did a good job of making plays. The thing that stood out to me in the scrimmage was not necessarily was when we picked the fumble up was, the scoop and score, which we practice. We had 2 tip passes. We had even the JV had an interception. The varsity had an interception. To me, that's making plays. The ball hits your hands as a DB, and we're actually intercepting the pass. A lot of times, you knock it down, and the kid, goes like this, and he gets mad because he could have made a play. I could have made a play. Well, they were making plays. If the quarterback had been live, he might have been hurt because they were coming. Navy Harris was coming. Gage Williams made a great play. So they're doing a really good job of flying to the football, and I think that's going to be strength of our team early, or at least I expect it to be. Leading that way, obviously, is a senior transfer named Kelsey Allen, and Kelsey's pretty much unblockable. We can't block him. So, he brings a lot of pressure, and you add Kelsey to the mix with Chad and Gage Williams, and then you got Navy Harris, and it just all the way across the board. We got a newcomer in Niger Bell. Niger didn't play the last 2 years, and he came out there DB, and he's just technically sound. So there's a lot of good things going into week 1 that maybe we weren't at that point last year. But the difference is going to be last year we kind of flew underneath the radar because nobody expected anything out of us. Now this year there's a big expectation, so we'll see how they handle that pressure.
Oh yes, absolutely, and especially after going 8-4 and Glenwood winning their first playoff game in 5 years. I think that is going to be an expectation that the Gators will have a good team. Let's speak again about the offense. I know one thing that I saw from 2015 to 2016 is that you instill the passing game as a very key part of the Glenwood offense, not just running the ball.
Well, you got to run in high school to win. I mean, you have to. You got to run in the NFL to win. But if you can take advantage of certain situations, obviously coming with an arena background and throwing the football, I'm not going to throw it. I still understand you got to run the football to win football games. But we have the availability to sling it around a little bit. And I think we do a good job of it. And I think I coach it up pretty good. So we'll take advantage of that. It makes it a little more of a threat. And then this year, of course, with our skill players, it just puts us in a good situation. But right now, we're not really running the ball well, which is a problem. And if you can't run the ball, you won't win. I mean, that sounds, me being repetitive, but that's kind of where we're at with the offense right now. And really, it's an O-line thing. We're 250 pounds across the board for the most part on the O-line, which is good for high school.
Right.
It's really good. And it's even better for a private school. But they're all juniors except for Caleb Brakefield, who's doing a phenomenal job. He didn't even play last year, football. And Caleb showed up as a senior, and Caleb's probably 270, 280, and he does a really good job for a first year kind of coming back. But he's the only senior on that O-line. So they're going through some learning curves and some things we got to fix, and we kind of jumped on them last week in the film room. If the O-line plays bad, we're going to lose the game. Doesn't matter if Cameron Neal's out there, or if Bryce Valero, or Christian Clausell, or John Burnett, or Mason Hurd, Trevor Crisco. Doesn't matter who's out there catching the ball. You will lose the game if you can't block. And we had to come to Jesus with the O-line, and we got to make sure that we can get those size players playing at the level they need to be at, and then if they can develop. And the idea behind it is we're heavy skill set players this year, and those guys are all juniors with the quarterback. And then going in the next year, I got a senior quarterback and a senior offensive line. So that can make up for any deficiencies we may have at the skill positions because we're going to graduate a lot. And so I'm already planning for next year. Okay. I'm already ahead of schedule of where we want to be and what we're trying to do. So that's where we're at offensively. I have no idea what's going to happen Friday night at the game. Offensively, I like to think that we can put up some points, but but right now we're really not clicking the way I think we need to be clicking.
Okay. Well, speaking of your opponent, it's Monroe. Well, I'm sorry, yeah, Monroe. For some reason, I get those mixed up every time. I don't know what it is. But Monroe Academy is a strong team, and that's the team that you lost to in the second round of the playoffs last year, right. Correct? They have the twins, Dalton and Mackenzie Griffin, and I believe both of those guys are coming back and will be back again this year. So you're on a neutral playing field, correct?
Huntington.
For those that want to get the opportunity to go to the ball game, let me mention that game is going to be at Huntington College in Montgomery at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So is there going to be a caravan or a bus available for folks?
I'm sure everybody's just going to show up at the game. I know, from a player standpoint, when we're leaving, I don't know about everybody else, but it's a neutral site. It's going to be hot now on that turf.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be hot.
So it is an artificial playing surface
Yes.
that you'll be on, okay? Well, let's talk about Monroe. What do you see that's going to be a concern for you?
Those two twins, fastest kids I've ever seen. I mean, those kids can fly, and both of them. Now, I heard that the Dalton, the one brother, had knee surgery. He may be out for a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's what the coach said. So I don't know if they're lying to me or if that really happens. We'll find out. Maybe that's an old coaching trick. But it doesn't matter. I mean, they're really good football players. Those are good. I mean, I watched the championship game. They played Bessemer, and I think one of them took a hit. I thought he was dead. And 2 plays later, he's back in the game. I mean, they're just some tough, good, pure football players. And it's a good school. I don't know much of the history. I know what I've read. I know what I've seen. I know what I saw last year when we played them. And they can play. They can play. And so when we had a chance to add an 11th game, you want to be where you want. If we want to go where we think we need to go, then you're going to have to beat them eventually anyway. So I knew what our deficiencies were last year as a team. I tried to make sure we set out to improve those areas for what we needed to do. I'm trying to keep it secret because I don't really want to put it out there, and apply that to Monroe. And if we come out the first game and I thought there was one thing that really hurt us last year against Monroe and Bessemer, and that was speed on the edge. I thought we got beat on the edge on the outside of the field with speed. That was when we played power teams, Lee Scott's, Tuscaloosa's, Northside? Not Northside.
Yes, there's a Northside Methodist in Dothan.
No, Northside. Those were all power teams right at you. And for what we had last year, that played into our hands. And we did well. When we played Bessemer's and the Monroes, and even Morgan came in with some little fast kids and ran gunshot around us and really put a whooping on us. Didn't see that one coming. But they beat us on the edge with speed. So we're trying to fix that this year with what we did and the players that we have and overcome that. So the only way to overcome that is play them first game and see what happens. So if we can come out the first game against Monroe and do well and win the game or lose the game or whatever happens, but get an idea, because we're going to see them again in the play. You're going to see them again in the playoffs. So get it out of the way early. Let's see what happens.
All right, in your region, and I think I've talked to you about this before, it is essentially the same as last year. And, of course, that means that you have the defending state champions, Bessemer Academy, Tuscaloosa, which is also strong. So how do you feel about your schedule for 2017?
It's fun. When I met with the headmaster when I took the job, he described it as the SEC West of private school football. And he's kind of right. I tell you what I've noticed about the AISA, and you can say what you want to say about private schools. The only difference between private schools is the numbers. The only difference between talent from a 7A school to private school is you got more kids to choose from. You don't have better kids, you got more to choose from. That's all it is. But the coaching in our conference, in our league, is really, really, and I've been to Maryland, and I've been to North Carolina, and I've seen, other high schools in this area. Just leave it at that. The coaches in that ASA are really good coaches for what they have to coach with. They are good football coaches. And I enjoy that. I enjoy competing against somebody who knows what they're doing. And all those coaches, Lee Scott, Coach Maddox, and Pike, and they're all really good coaches. And so, that's what I like about this conference. So there's no slack game. You don't look at your schedule and say, oh, okay. I mean, you got to go through, and Edgewood's working its way back up. Of course, Edgewood got depleted when the coach left and took all their players to Autauga. But he's building that program up with a bunch of guys that were in 8th and 9th grade that took it on the chin last year, and they may take it on the chin a little bit this year, and all of a sudden next year they're going to be Bessemer, Edgewood, Tuscaloosa, and then you got to fight through all those teams just to get through the other bracket to play on Monroe and everybody else in a Pike. So I love the competition. I love the conference.
Well, I think that's one thing that Glenwood has never shied away from is the fact that they're willing to play strong teams to get better.
Well, you have to. I mean, you look at we had a Gator night last week, and there was 5 teams standing up there getting rings.
That says a lot. Yes, that was quite an impressive ceremony, I guess, prior to the scrimmage.
We got 5 state championships in one school year. That's crazy. So now we got to get the football on that same page, and that's going to be tough because of the competition you go through. But it should be that way. I mean, you don't want nothing easy. I mean, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Well, specifically with the scrimmage, you scrimmaged against a 4A public school, Columbus High School, and I know they've changed the rules a little bit so that teams like Georgia in public school can now compete at that in a scrimmage or whatever. But what did you think that there was one thing that kind of showed out to you as something that you were glad to see, and some other than the offensive line that you spoke about at that scrimmage?
I saw what I needed to see out of Cam. I threw him 2 passes. He made 2 great plays, and I said, "Sit down. We're good." Okay. I saw what I needed to see out of the defense, and I think we were in shape. I think we were in really good shape. Our guys weren't winning at all, and I thought, I appreciate Columbus High coming over, Coach Marino, and for us giving an opportunity to play a 4A school. That's what
and they had a lot of players out there in the Columbus High Blue, that's for sure. And as I remember, you scored 3 times and they scored once until you got to the inside the 20s.
Yeah, we were just doing that. We were doing 10 plays, 10 plays, 10 plays, and then we did like a red zone inside the 10. And even when we got inside the red zone, and Coach was doing the same thing I was doing. I was just running certain things to see what we could do and couldn't do. If we got inside the 5-yard line in the red zone, I have a whole other package. I wasn't going to run the ball at all. I wanted to work on some passing stuff because I knew what we could do running the ball, and he was doing the same thing. So I don't. Plus, I think their best player sat out from a receiver standpoint. But I thought we competed well. And Columbus is a good school. They're a good middle of the pack team over there in that 4A conference. And I had somebody a long time ago sent out a tweet that said the only teams that Glenwood could beat would be Calvary Christian and Pacelli. And so I remember that tweet, even though I don't respond to stuff like that. But I remember that, and I thought, that's why I went out and looked for a 4A or 5A school to scrimmage. I wanted that Bessemer does that. They scrimmage 6A schools in the state of Alabama in the preseason because it makes you better. It doesn't do you any good to play Little Sisters of the Poor.
Right. Yeah, the stronger the competition, the stronger.
That's why I asked Columbus, and they wanted to come over, and it was a good setting for us because neither one of us wanted to get anybody hurt. I'm not thick enough to where we can afford to get anybody hurt, and he didn't want to either. But it was a good controlled scrimmage, good plays on both sides of the ball. They made some great catches, and I'm just thankful they came over and scrimmaged and it got us ready. So we picked up 2 extra kind of contests this year that we didn't have last year. We got an 11th game, and I picked up the scrimmage against Columbus High. Last year, all we did was scrimmage 1A Chambers, who runs the wing T, and we don't see the wing T, so it kind of didn't really help us at all.
Yeah, and you had only 9 regular season games last year. Is that right?
We had 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had 10, but we had 6 on the road because the Calvary game was on the road.
Oh, that's right.
So we had 4 home games last year. That's it. Now this year we have 6, so it kind of flips the role. So it's kind of good for us.
In fact, you're going to see another set of twins on your first home game. The Andrews twins at
I need
Calvary.
some twins. What's going on?
So that's the first home game.
That's the first one. Those are 2 good football players too. We can talk about that next week.
We will.
That'll be a good game too. So, I hopefully both kids are playing for Monroe this week. I'd like to see both twins play, see what we have. I think we got a good football team. It's a lot of information. The only thing that's hurting me right now and hurting the Gators is this game Friday night typically would give me this week to practice and all of next week to practice. And I'm trying to mash everything in, and we've only had 20 practices since the first day of camp. That's it. So you got to put everything in, all the special teams, all the conditioning, all the plays, all the little stuff, and of course you're dealing with all the administrative stuff that you have to deal with, and travel bags and rosters are straight and paperwork in, all that stuff that gets in the way of the goal of just playing football.
For those that don't know, that in a scrimmage, there was no kicking. There was no kickoffs, no extra points.
Quarterback was not live.
And the quarterback was not live. He could not be hit, and there was no punting. Now, I will mention this, and I think Glenwood's kicking, as far as placement, should be in good hands with
Camacho.
Camacho.
Thomas Camacho is a really good kicker. Probably the best in the conference. You know, he had a 47-yarder that last night in practice. Not that it was like, wow, we had a 47-yarder. He was just kicking. And they were like, back it up. I was like, no, we don't need to. So the thing with Thomas is if the ball gets to the 30-yard line and in, I can kick a field goal for 3. I can get 3 points. So it kind of helps with your scoring. And, you know, and we did that last year. I was watching the Monroe film just as a review. He banged in a 38, 39, 40-yard kick early in the game, make it 10-0. And those points add up.
Yes, they do. And that's one thing you want to do is when you get on your side of the field, you want to get points.
Got to get something. Let's play defense. I think our defense will carry us early. And that's going to be the biggest improvement this year is what we got on the defense side of the ball. Coach McConnell and those guys are doing a good job of getting guys in the right position, and we got athletes on the field that can make plays.
Well, let's talk about your coaches for just a minute. You've got some new faces and also some returning faces. Could you mention what they do? And
Josh McConnell's our D coordinator. He's returning, does a great job. Robert Risden's returning. He was with me with the Lions. He does the D-line for us. Brandon Thomas, who played for me with the Lions, he does the offensive line. We actually picked up, I'll tell you, it was huge. We picked up Trip Henderson. So Trip was the old coach, was the coach at Glenwood, was the head coach at Glenwood. So he's doing the linebackers for us and really helping me in the box, which is good. So now we got 2 guys with head coach experience on the staff. So that helps out. Kyle King's come in, help out with DBs. Thomas Street's come in and help out with linebackers and operation. George Howard with the running backs, which is great. I got 2 young, really good coaches in Brett Bauer and Trotter Behringer running the JV. Derek Denny and Dallas Crow with the Pee-wees. I watched Pee-wee practice last night. They're good. I cannot wait to watch those kids play football next week. They got a good size. They got good coaching. They got good players. We have 24 kids on the Pee-wee team at a private school, which is phenomenal. So there's 100 kids in that program top to bottom. So it keeps getting better, and then you look at all the facility improvements with the new fence around the field, the new scoreboard, the visiting team bleachers, the press box got redone, all the brickwork got redone. Max Fitness, I got to talk about Max Fitness and Charlie Lindsay, ex-Glenwood Gator. He donated a bunch of weights to the weight room for the kids. So many people step up that people don't even see, have no idea. Nolan Fences, Mr. Nolan's doing a great job. If you need your fence done, call Nolan Fences. I mean, there's just great people in that school, top to bottom, you know. And what a great time to be a Glenwood Gator.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be an exciting year for 2017, and I know that, like I say, you're jumping right into the fire with playing a playoff team that was in the championship game last year. But again, you made a great point that you're going to find out what you have in that game, and I think that's important that you want to see. And I'm hoping that next week we'll be excited about talking about some good things that happened with your team. And as far as Monroe is concerned, we'll see if that neutral site may make a difference as far as team playing. I think that's what you see in a playoff game too. I know the first game usually is a home game, but when you go on, eventually you have to play that big game at a neutral site. So that's going to be important.
I think the more big games I can get our kids accustomed to, then the less the big game has an effect on them. I mean, we were 5-1 last year, or 4-1 going into the Bessemer game, and they were undefeated, and we were 6-1 or something. I don't know what it was. If we'd won that game, we'd been in first place, but we hadn't been in that big stage yet, and it was a little too big for us, you know. And I'm just trying to play as many of those games as I can and expose them to that kind of environment, so those games aren't as big anymore.
Good, Coach. Thanks for coming in to our studio. I hope to talk to you next week and see some good things, and we'll talk about the first home game next week. Thanks. This is the Glenwood Football Show with Coach Jason Gibson. Thanks.